Cinema versus History, the real Battle of Thermopylae. The world of cinema has often drawn inspiration from historical events and stories, giving rise to dramatic and engaging films, not just from Hollywood. One such example is 300, a film based on the events of the Greco-Persian Wars. Directed by Zack Snyder and inspired by Frank Miller's graphic novel, the film tells the story of the bravery and determination of 300 Spartans who face an overwhelming Persian force. However, when comparing the cinematic and comic book versions to historical reality, there are significant discrepancies that distort viewers' understanding of the actual time period. Rather than portraying events with historical accuracy, the movie offers striking visuals and intense action scenes. Let's take a closer look at the key differences between the film 300, Battle of Thermopylae, and what really happened. In the film, King Leonidas leaves Sparta with just 300 warriors, later joined by Daxos and a small force of Arcadians. In reality, the Greek army at Thermopylae was much larger. The land force led by Leonidas consisted of over 7,000 soldiers, including about 3,800 Peloponnesians, 700 Thespians, 1,000 Phocians, 400 Thebans, and of course, 300 Spartan hoplites. In addition, each Spartan warrior was accompanied by 3 helots, enslaved laborers forming the economic backbone of Sparta, adding about 900 more men. Not all of them fought in the battle. Leonidas tasked the Phocians with guarding a mountain pass, which the Persians later discovered and used to flank the Greek army, thanks to the betrayal of Ephialtes of Malice. In the film, Daxos informs Leonidas they are surrounded and then retreats with his men. In reality, Leonidas gave his allies the option to withdraw, and while many accepted, around 2,000 men chose to stay and fight, including Spartans, Helots, Thespians, and Thebans. In the movie 300, Spartans are portrayed as ripped, half-naked warriors wearing no armor on their upper bodies, only helmets, often removed, red cloaks, greaves, and underwear. This depiction is far from historically accurate. Spartans actually relied heavily on quality armor, though it varied based on each soldier's financial means. Standard equipment included a Corinthian helmet with a distinctive crest and a custom-fitted chest plate designed to offer maximum protection against stabbing and slashing attacks. Many hoplites wore lamellar armor made of layered leather, capable of stopping arrows unless fired at close range. While not all Spartans could afford full bronze armor, none went into battle naked. At the very least, they wore wool tunics called chitons, usually knee-length. They also wore bronze greaves strapped to their legs for lower body protection. The most important piece of Spartan equipment was the round shield, aspis, a wooden shield covered in leather and later reinforced with bronze. Losing one's shield was considered the ultimate disgrace for a Spartan. Frank Miller, the creator of the comic book, admitted he removed the chest plates and armor skirts so the characters could move better and look cooler. Fully armored Spartans would have looked too similar on screen, making it harder to distinguish key characters. Thus, Leonidas alone wore a crested helmet to ensure audiences could always recognize the king. Spartans fought in the hoplite style, using tight formations and spears up to 4.5 meters long. Initially, soldiers held their spears underarm while at a distance, and overhead when engaging the enemy up close. Hoplites fought in a phalanx, a solid, shielded wall of spears and men, an extremely effective formation against larger forces. This method was the core of Spartan military excellence. In the film, Spartans frequently break formation to run into one-on-one or 1v-many battles, which would have been suicidal in a real fight. Such behavior would never have occurred at Thermopylae, where cohesion and discipline were vital. The movie emphasizes individual heroism and visual flair over historical tactics, focusing on dramatic cinematography rather than accuracy. In the film 300, Xerxes is portrayed as a towering, godlike man covered in jewelry and piercings. He appears as an arrogant and overconfident ruler, relying solely on overwhelming numbers with no real strategic depth. His desire to conquer Greece is shown as absolute and ruthless, and he's willing to do anything to achieve victory. In reality, historical sources describe Xerxes as a normal-height man with a beard. He was a cautious and strategic leader who carefully planned his invasion of Greece, even though it ultimately failed. Xerxes was also a cultured ruler who supported art, science, and architecture and presided over a flourishing period of construction and culture. He was a skilled politician who managed to keep the Persian Empire strong and unified. Unlike the film's portrayal, Xerxes never met Leonidas in person, and he certainly never led troops on the front line. In the film 300, the fearless Spartans fight not only against various human enemies, but also against elephants and a giant, hellishly enraged rhinoceros. These exotic animals were used in the film to symbolize the wealth and exoticism of the Persian Empire. Elephants are shown as towering, terrifying beasts used by the Persians to smash through Greek lines. While visually striking, there is no historical evidence that Persians used elephants or rhinoceroses at the Battle of Thermopylae. Instead, the Persians relied on cavalry, which made up about 20% of their army. Delios is a Spartan soldier who, in the film, loses an eye during the battle and is sent back to Sparta by King Leonidas to tell the story of Thermopylae. At the film's end, he appears as the leader of a united Greek army. Played by David Wenham, known for his role as Faramir in The Lord of the Rings, Delios is a compelling figure. However, Delios did not exist in reality, though the story includes a few kernels of truth. According to Herodotus, 2 soldiers at Thermopylae suffered from eye infections. Their names were Aristodemus and Eurytus. King Leonidas ordered them to return to Sparta before the final battle. Only Aristodemus obeyed. Eurytus had his helots carry him back into the fight, where he died. Aristodemus returned to Sparta and was shunned as a coward, largely because Eurytus had chosen to return and die fighting. A year later, Aristodemus fought fiercely at the Battle of Plataea, reportedly with such reckless fury that he redeemed his honor among the Spartans, though he died in the battle. Because he broke formation and fought suicidally, he received no official honors, as Spartans preferred those who fought bravely but aimed to survive and fight again. The film presents an idealized and romanticized image of Sparta and its warriors, shown as fearless and devoted men, ready to sacrifice their lives for Sparta. It emphasizes their harsh discipline, rigorous training, and moral values. Spartan warriors are depicted as the epitome of virtue and courage. However, Sparta was also the largest slaveholding state in ancient Greece. Its society relied on a class of slaves known as helots, who made up a significant portion of the population. Helots were war captives, or their descendants, bound to the land they worked. They lived in family communities and could not be sold or bought like traditional slaves. They gave up 50% of their produce to the Spartans, keeping the rest for themselves to survive or trade. Spartans ritually humiliated, abused, and even killed helots. Massacres of helots were recorded. For instance, in 425 BCE, 2,000 helots were slaughtered after being falsely promised their freedom. During a ritual called Crypteia, Spartan youth were ordered to declare war on helots. These minimally armed squads would hide near helot villages by day and raid them by night, killing residents. Killing a helot was seen as a rite of passage into Spartan manhood. Helots also served as auxiliary troops and took part in the Battle of Thermopylae. The opening scene of the movie 300 shows an elder examining a newborn Spartan boy, dramatically standing on a cliff ledge above a pit of bones and skulls. The man says that if the child is small, sickly, or deformed, it is thrown from the cliff. This gruesome image comes from a single source, Plutarch, a Greek writer, historian, and philosopher. In his writings on Sparta, he claimed that newborns were inspected, and if deemed healthy and strong, they were assigned land and raised. If the baby was weak or deformed, it was taken to a steep place on Mount Taygetus and left to die, believed to be best for both child and state. Today, most people think of this story when asked about Spartan child rearing. However, recent studies challenge this narrative. Theodoros Pitzios, an anthropologist from the Athens Medical School, examined bones found at the base of Mount Taygetus. Analysis showed they belonged only to teenagers and adult males aged 18 to 35. The remains, dating to the 6th and 5th century BCE, were likely those of criminals or traitors, confirming other ancient accounts that Spartans executed prisoners by throwing them into the chasm. Pitzios concluded that the story of throwing infants was likely a myth popularized by Plutarch, written more than 500 years after Thermopylae. One of the most iconic scenes in the film is King Leonidas shouting, "This is Sparta," before kicking a Persian envoy into a well. In the movie, the envoy had asked for earth and water as a symbol of submission to the Persian Empire, but this scene never happened in real life. According to Herodotus, a similar event took place earlier, and after that incident, Xerxes never sent another envoy to Sparta. So while it makes for a memorable cinematic moment, it's pure fiction. In 300, there is no mention of another battle that took place at the same time, but in a different location, the Battle of Artemisium. Here, the navies of allied Greek city-states like Athens, Corinth, Sparta, and others fought against the fleet of the Persian Empire under King Xerxes. The Greek War Council, knowing the overwhelming number of enemy forces, decided it was essential to have two key battles, one on land and the other at sea. Athenian general Themistocles proposed that the united Greek forces block the Persian ground forces at the Thermopylae Pass and prevent their navy from advancing through the narrow Artemisium Strait between Euboea and the Greek mainland. In the film, we do see a Persian fleet destroyed by a storm, which did happen to part of the Persian navy, but the movie completely omits the fact that the Greek navy held off the Persians at Artemisium for 3 days, successfully blocking their advance by sea. The Greeks only withdrew after learning of the defeat at Thermopylae. In the film, Spartan King Leonidas appears as a young man in his 30s, but in reality, he was about 60 years old when he defended the pass at Thermopylae in 480 BCE. Leonidas also wasn't the only king of Sparta. Sparta was ruled by two hereditary kings from the Agiad and Eurypontid dynasties, both wielding equal power. This dual kingship, or diarchy, was a hallmark of Spartan politics. The kings primarily had religious, judicial, and military responsibilities. If one king led the army in war, the other had to remain in Sparta to manage political matters and defend the city. Still focusing on Leonidas. In the film, we see corrupt ephors forbid Leonidas from waging war against the Persians. The ephors were elected officials in the Spartan government who oversaw daily life, including education, military training, and citizen conduct. They also held power over the kings and could, in rare cases, condemn them to death. In the movie 300, Leonidas defies the ephors' decision and leaves with 300 men. In reality, the Spartans were well informed about enemy movements and knew they had to send forces into battle. However, this coincided with the Carneia, a religious festival honoring Apollo, during which no warfare was permitted. Still, the Spartans couldn't afford to appear cowardly or uncommitted. So they sent King Leonidas and his personal guard to delay the Persians until the full army could march after the festival ended. The rest of the Spartan army planned to depart as soon as the celebrations ended, hoping to arrive in time, but, as history tells us, they didn't make it. And that's how the real Battle of Thermopylae unfolded. Which difference from the film surprised you the most? Would you like to hear more stories about historical figures we mostly know from movies or TV series? Let us know in the comments.